Welcome to the Krinzman Property Playbook, where we dive deep into the heart of South Florida's real estate scene. I'm your host, Matthew Krinzman, here to guide you through the strategies, insights, and community connections that make buying and selling real estate a science. If you're looking to move beyond the basics, build trusted relationships, and grow your understanding of this competitive market, you're in the right place. Every episode, I'll be bringing on local pros, from attorneys to contractors, to give you the inside scoop on what it really takes to succeed in real estate. So whether you're an investor, buyer, or just curious about the market, let's kick things off and get you one step closer to your real estate goals. Welcome to the Playbook. Hi everyone, I'm Matthew Krinzman. I'm your host for today's episode of this podcast. It's called the Krinzman Property Playbook, and with us today we have Sergio Fernandez, who is the owner of Greenfoot Home Inspections, a South Florida home inspection and property inspections, because you also do not just homes, obviously you also do commercial properties as well, which is, I know, is something that's high on your list of properties to inspect. So Sergio, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and anything interesting, and then we'll dive into the whole home inspection, property inspection that we have to go through when a buyer or even a seller is getting ready to sell their property.
Absolutely, Matthew. Good morning to you, first of all, and thank you so much for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
Of course, my
pleasure.
Well, first of all, my name is Sergio Fernandez. I'm one of the co-owners of Greenfoot Home Inspections. My brother, who works out of West Palm Beach,
who I know well too. Good
who
guy.
you've worked with as well, Matthew.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We started Greenfoot, I guess, in 2012, 2014, so a number of years ago.
Yep.
But before that, we were on the other side of it, if you will. My father used to do commercial insurance inspections for the carriers themselves. In other words, they would send us to, commercial properties, maybe a two-story apartment building or like a little strip mall with perhaps like a deli or a little restaurant.
Yeah.
And then you would go there and check for liability issues or maybe property issues, roof leaking, that kind of stuff, and make your recommendations there. And then the insurance carriers would use that information to, deal with claims or their insured policies, requests for repairs, that kind of thing. So we did that for a number of years, but there it's not really like doing home inspections in the sense where there you have to do a bunch because you're only getting paid maybe less than $50 per inspection. You're not there longer than maybe a half hour, 40 minutes tops. You're checking key things, obviously.
Right.
But it's not as involved as, say, a home inspection would be, which is what we're doing now. How we broke in, actually, my brother kind of discovered it and went through the certification process, at the beginning. And at the time, I was actually working in a whole different, my degree is actually in information technology. I worked at a bank. So he said, look, I just got this thing. I'm crazy busy. You could really, work for yourself and probably double what you're making, doing the computer thing. And
Right.
At first I was a bit skeptical, but I think I was getting a little burnt out on the IT thing. There's, it's who you know, not what you know kind of thing. So I said, well, let me give it a whirl. I literally dropped my job, took a month off sabbatical with whatever savings I had, went through the certification process. I literally got certified in about 3.5 weeks, which is kind of speedy, I think, but only because I had the time to fully delve into it, if you will. And got certified, did my fingerprints, background check with the state, Florida Department of Business, better regulations, and then the insurance and the whole nine. And next thing you know, I'm helping my brother up in West Palm just so I could get my feet wet and get the exposure. And then I kind of came down here and made a name for myself by meeting folks such as yourself at the meeting that we met at. And
that's because of
folks like Adam.
We have a mutual friend in the insurance business.
Correct.
Adam Spiegel, and he was the one who introduced us. And I think from there on,
we both still have a business relationship with. Actually, we just talked about this. I got off the phone with Adam a couple of weeks ago. It was nice to speak to him and his wife.
Yeah, he's responsible for this introduction with us, and then I think from there on, you've been at least my top, home inspector to go to. locally here in South Florida. And, finding
Yeah, well, it's funny. Like I always tell folks, look, you use me once, and if you're picky and you like detail, you're not going to call anybody else. So,
no, that's for
that's the
sure. As
beauty about
far as
doing it right every
detail
single time,
right.
you know,
And that's a critical thing, I look for in the service providers that I recommend to my buyers and my sellers is that someone who is
or
I,
use yourself. I
I've
tell
used, of
folks,
course, yes, I have used you for my own home purchase, and it was very helpful, and
exactly.
I appreciate that. But I what I look for as a real estate agent locally here in South Florida is for a service provider, someone who's dependable. That's because that's difficult to find nowadays.
Punctual,
Punctual,
professional,
professional, and I think also who does a great job in explaining the whole process.
without the sky is falling. The
Right,
sky is falling. And
exactly.
I'll top you on that. I'm going to top you on that. Okay. You ready for this?
Mhm.
Delivers the reports within 24 hours,
Oh God, because especially we're on a
99%.
schedule. We're on a schedule. Our contracts stipulate how long we have time to do an inspection.
Precisely.
7,
Going
10 days,
back to
12 days, whatever it may be. Time is critical to get these things done, all these
absolutely.
reports done that are done. So let's just go into, you know, we're talking about the importance of home inspections. And
Hmm.
in your opinion, and this is something I have a conversation with, most of the time on the buyer's side, is that this is not something you want to skimp on. This is not
Correct.
something you want to get the most cut rate person or company out there to do the job for you.
Exactly.
I
Because
go
you get what you pay for.
at 100%, especially
Hmm.
down here in South Florida. This is something that's very critical because there's so many, I think, unprofessional. I,
Yeah, I guess those folks operate, me, I don't really like to badmouth anybody, but
of
they
course, neither do I.
operate without the vision for making their business grow and expand. I mean, think about it, Matthew. How sustainable is that business practice? I mean, those guys may get away with it for a month, month and a half, but
Right,
once people catch on, they're going to be like, "Oh, you can't call Pepito. He's going to rob your money and he's going to
right.
give you a really horrible inspection, and you're really not going to be any better after the inspection than you were before."
So,
So,
yeah.
I don't care if it's $20. You might as well light it on fire and don't get an inspection.
But let's talk about the importance of home inspections from your point of view. I know my point of view because I need to know, I want my buyers to know what's going on with the property that they're under contract for. Good, bad, indifferent, whatever it may be, things
Exactly.
that will come up that are important to have addressed or not addressed. It could be something like you said, the sky's not falling.
Precisely.
It could be like, oh, a light bulb fixture is bad. Okay.
Well,
But then let's go into
frankly,
that. Let's go.
every buyer's different, right?
Right.
Like some folks are like me, where I'm just like laid back and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can deal with this or whatever. And some folks are like my wife, which are CD. It has to be perfect. It has to be new. So, and then there's a gambit arranged within that, those two extremes, if you will. However, I I kind of impart on every single client that I come across, and I tell them the following statement before I get into why it's important to get a home inspection.
Okay.
I don't care if you have one house or 1,000 houses. Every time you pulled the trigger on a purchase, you basically enslaved yourself to indebtedness to some financial institution for
100%.
30
Yes.
plus years.
Yes.
Okay.
If
So are you gonna become a slave to a money pit or something that's unsafe or structurally unsound? I think you want to know that before you write that check for, well, not write the check, but you understand what I'm
Well,
saying. Sign
even if
the
someone's a cash
contract for
buyer.
$600,000 on a house
Right.
that you don't know if you're going to be there 30 years, 2 years, what have you. So
Right.
obviously, the importance is you need to buyer beware. Like I say, you need to know what you're getting. If I
Time to get
spend two
inventory.
dollars, Matthew,
Yeah.
$2, I'm like, I research it. My wife makes fun of me all the time. I research it to death.
Hmm.
It took me years to buy my plasma TV, and she actually had to break my arm to buy it. We were in Brandsmart, and I had researched it for 2.5 years, and I was like, oh, I'm not really sure. She's like, you're buying this
Right.
TV, we're not leaving. So I'm a bit too much, you know what I'm saying? But I think that's the inspector in me. But you really need to make an informed decision when you're talking about those kinds of numbers, okay?
Absolutely.
And like I said, you could do it once and you could do it 50 times. It doesn't really matter. Every single time you do it, it's a big deal.
Well,
And it should be treated with that kind of importance and severity.
But
in
no
my
matter who the
opinion.
buyer is, if they're financer or a cash buyer, I always
Doesn't
encourage,
matter.
especially even a cash
Yeah, it
buyer.
doesn't
Hey,
matter. Yeah, it's specifically a cash buyer because, okay,
definitely
what if the cash that they're using, I'm going to propose, like a scenario. What if the cash that they're using is all the cash they have and they got a hot mess? Now they have foundation problems.
right.
They got to come up with 100 grand to do a new foundation on the house. That kind of stuff. It's the unforeseen. And I'm not saying, Matthew, mind you, because full disclosure, this is how I am. Honesty is the best policy. Even a good inspection isn't going to catch everything. There's a lot of stuff
True.
that's inside walls, under a concrete slab, behind a kitchen cabinet. And just yesterday, when we spoke, I was doing a condo in North Bay Village. Okay, the building's older. That's the
Yeah.
other thing I was going to say. Especially if the building's old, that you really need an inspection. Built in 1966. Guess where the electrical panel was located? The electrical panel was
Me.
located not only behind the fridge, it was in, they installed like a wine rack holder
Oh
on
wow.
top. Like, I don't know how I got that cover off, to be honest with you, but obviously it's a huge fire safety hazard. It shouldn't be there. It's never going to pass a 4-point inspection. If you try to get insurance on that place, you're going to have to move that. So although the buyer was receptive to what I was telling her these things because I said, look, this is going to cost you money. So you may want to either, negotiate and, at the closing table, or perhaps have them give you concessions,
Right.
or have them repair it or what have you. The lady kept saying, oh, $800, you could switch to the other side of the wall. I said, that's fantastic, but you haven't done it yet. And now this
Right.
young lady's trying to buy this house. So I don't really understand what your argument is.
So,
I'd be honest, like, and I get it. It's not a great condo market right now, and sellers are really spooked,
mhm.
And sometimes when I speak like that in the open, folks get a little, terrified. But I say, look, there hasn't been a house that I've done that doesn't have some sort of issue.
100%.
It's just that we need to know what those issues are so that I can evaluate my own financial situation and can I take this on,
Right.
right?
Well, that's what I
Or
advise. Yeah, this is what, when I get the inspection report is something I will obviously I go through it myself. I had go
Mhm.
through it with the buyer and we go look for what's the critical issues. And we,
Which I tip my hat to you
yeah.
because, Matthew, honestly, some realtors, we were talking about contractors earlier, they don't show up,
Right.
period.
And I'm
Not even
usually
for 10
there.
minutes.
I'm usually
Yes,
there for
that's
the
what I was going
buyer.
to say. My hat's
Yeah.
off to you.
And
Good
and
service
it's
to the
critical
client.
to hear. And also, look, if the buyer has the time, I like for them to be there too, because that way
Mhm.
you as an inspector can show them and
Mhm.
either say, hey, this is a critical thing, or this is like, look, this isn't
Right,
great,
right.
but
Well, I
it's
I I think that helps more in the latter type of thing,
yeah,
right? Because I mean, technically, if I don't, I've been doing this for a number of years now. Matthew, I've seen less than 5 structural issues.
right.
Okay, so yeah, that's huge. When you see the part of the house ripping away because of foundation issues or
Yeah, it's
maybe
hard.
damage to the webbing in the truss system up in the attic, that's a big deal, obviously. But they're not all like that. Most
Okay.
of the time, it's like stuff that, like I said before, either can be, chalked up to like a monthly maintenance, preventive maintenance thing,
Right.
caulking around windows,
A honeydew list is
proper
what they call it.
yeah, exactly. Like you're a homeowner now, and that's kind of the other thing I didn't get a chance to speak about when we talked about the importance of a home inspector or a home inspection,
Mhm.
specifically a good one like myself. I do toot my own horn here and again. I like to hold people's hands, especially like
Yeah.
first-time home buyers.
Well,
They
that's
don't
actually,
know what the hell they're getting into.
I'm
So
glad
it's
you
like,
mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned about the home.
like, look, you don't know this right now, but the
Right.
minute you get this is going to be an issue, and you better be ready
100%.
for it. You understand what I'm saying?
So
So,
I just want to point that out what you just said about the first time home buyer. And when I have a first time home buyer, you're actually the first one I recommend
yeah,
because based on experience, look, I know you take your time and you
yes,
go through everything. You do a lot of hand
everything.
holding, which I don't have the expertise to really do. I mean, I have knowledge. I know what to
Right,
look,
right, right. Of course,
but
of course. But this is not
especially a
your
home
thing. You
time,
you have your own thing.
right?
Right, right.
First time home buyer is really there. This is a huge step for them. It's a huge investment, and this is really going to be a big part of their life. So you want someone to show them and either to alleviate their fears and
Right.
concerns and say, hey, look, this gets fixable, or this is great.
Yeah,
Or you
because
can say, hey, this is great. What you buy
well,
here is
that's a
great.
fantastic point, and I will add to that because sometimes, I'll have a young couple that
And you've had
maybe
a few of
like my
mine.
wife that's
Yeah.
OCD, that they everything is like a major issue, right?
Mhm.
So I feel like part of my job is to say, okay, look, the caulking around the windows is not, this is a
Not the
weekend
end of the
for
world.
your project. You're going to spend maybe $50
Right.
and a lot of sweat and
Right.
time. That's it. Okay, but we got cast iron under the house
That's a whole
and
different
and
story.
and we've got a bathtub
And we'll
plugging
get
up.
to that. Yeah, we'll get to
Yeah,
those.
that's a different
Yeah.
thing. But obviously, that's the importance in
Right.
a nutshell
So
of
let
having a good home
so you
inspection.
mentioned earlier the 4-point inspection. Let's talk about
Yes.
that. That is an inspection
Yeah, I
report
actually even
that we use for
debated.
insurance,
I don't know
correct?
if you want to do this or if I'm able to. I think I can, but I could pull up a blank 4-point and just kind of show you stuff or whatever. But we'll talk about it for a minute here
Yeah, let's talk about
before
the
we get
four
into
point
it.
inspection. Tell us what it is, the
Okay,
components of the four
we'll
point.
we'll back way up. So here in the state of Florida, the insurance thing, if you will, is a very big deal right now.
100%. Yes.
Has been for a number of years. And what I mean by that is it's costly. It's sometimes difficult to obtain cheaper insurance rate.
Yes.
This is due to many factors. We've suffered a lot of damage from a number of very large hurricanes and storms. The insurance companies have suffered significant losses. Heck, we're still paying for the last three just now this season.
Right.
So what that translates to is obviously higher premiums and less patience with not so insurable properties, if you will. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so let's talk about the 4-point. Typically, it's my understanding, and I'm not an agent, and neither are you, Matthew, but we've been doing this long enough
Insurance
to
wise.
know.
Yes.
Right, right. We've been doing this long enough to know that a 4-point inspection is typically requested or required by the insurance carrier underwriter. I'm not even talking about your local insurance agent. This is the
100%.
actual insurance company
Yes.
because they want a picture or a clear picture, if you will, of what kind of condition the property is in. Why do they call it a 4-point? Because they're only addressing the four major building systems,
And what are
okay?
those?
Which include, starting from the top, if you will, roof,
Right.
electrical,
Right.
all your plumbing, and your mechanical, we call it, but it's actually your air conditioning and heating,
HVAC.
cooling, HVAC, exactly, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning.
Right.
So if any of those four systems are found to be deficient
Hmm.
during the inspection, then obviously we're going to have a tough time finding a cheap insurance rate, if you will. We'll have to make some repairs or maybe upgrade in some cases. Matter of fact, the one yesterday, I told her, your 4-point's not going to look very good looking. You're going to have to move that panel. You may want to upgrade because it's already full and it's got a double tap. So,
Sure.
you kill all birds with one stone. I noticed a bunch of GFIs that were not working properly.
Mhm.
The one outside wasn't even GFI. The one in the master bath was improperly wired, meaning that the electrical outlets have three wires, a ground wire, hot, and neutral.
Right.
So the hot and the neutral were switched, and that's not a great situation. It's kind of hazardous, but
Mhm.
as it pertains to a GFI, which is the special ones with the buttons, it won't allow it to trip.
Okay.
So she had electrical work there, and
Mhm.
obviously the AC was older. They've been giving us a hard time about those lately. I had
Oh yeah.
a condo here on the beach, I'd say about a month ago. I mean, that thing was blowing. I included pictures of I didn't do that before. I'm including pictures of the temperature differential for older AC units, meaning 15 or more years.
Right.
Useful life per industry
Yeah.
standards on a central AC system in Florida is about 15 years. And actually, that's good to kind of impose here on this meeting or on this space. Typical useful lives, your water heaters are about 10 years, the
Right.
tank ones. The ACs I just mentioned, 15 years.
Roof.
The roof, it depends. Okay, flat roofs are the worst, 15 years, 20 at most, but no, 15, truly. That's like the true number.
Right.
20 when I'm trying to get them to pass a 4-point.
Yeah.
Because
That's the
again,
critical age.
a 4-point is just as tricky for me as it is for my client because
Sure.
if I see something, I'm like, I'm sorry, they're not, and I can't lose my license to say
100%.
this
No, no,
didn't
you can't
happen or
just
what have you.
right,
This is how I feed my family. I tell folks all the time, I would love to be able to help you in that manner, but
right.
no, it's not.
Yeah.
And it's not really helping you because God forbid that's an unsafe situation like the electrical thing we were talking about. And I go, oh, I didn't see anything. And then they have a fire 2 nights later, somebody gets hurt, they
Right.
lose their property. No, I'm not that inspector.
Right.
You want a Hialeah special, you go that way, but not this guy here. And then, like you said, buyer beware. The guy that's charging you $50, I mean, is he even certified? Honestly, you know what I'm saying? Like, I had to spend some money, over $5,000 to get certified. It wasn't like I just
So,
did. I ran around and studied, and
right. So on the four
I,
points, so we covered HVAC. We have the water heater 10 years, AC now
oh,
is
I'm sorry.
15
We're on
years.
the roofs before I got
The
sidetracked.
roofs.
So the
Yeah.
flat one, which is we call build up, which is the rollout stuff. It's just a line of stuff. That's 15 years.
Uh-huh.
Then we move up to single ply asphalt shingles, which are about 15 years.
Hmm.
Then they have the three-dimensional shingles, which is an additional 10 years to the 25 on the single ply. So that's 35 years.
Right.
Metal roofs, like the Key West ones, are
Yeah.
about 30 years. The best are your clay and
Clay tile.
concrete tile roofs.
Yeah.
The concrete, a little less, I'd say about 30 years. And there's different grades of concrete and clay, mind you.
Right.
So it could range from 30 to 50 years. But the old school ones, like the ones that were built in the 20s, I've seen those roofs last like 60, 70 years almost. Yeah, with proper maintenance.
So
So,
on the
but again, an insurance company isn't going to look at a 60-year-old roof and say,
no.
"Oh, you're good," because of this caveat. See, the thing is, like, they have their own kind of honeymoon checklist, if you will, for the kind of clients that they want.
Yeah.
So when it gets to the roof section, they want to see that that roof, whatever the roof is on the property, has at least 5 or more years
Years.
of
Yeah.
useful life remaining on it from the time that it was replaced with a permit. Now, guess what, Matthew? In a perfect world, every property would have a
It has a
permit, right?
permit. I know. Yes. And
Guess
that's
what?
something you, by the way, I just want to just while we continue on the 4 point, I just want to say that this is something that you do look for. You do the permit search
Oh,
prior to the
absolutely.
inspection just to make
Even
sure.
before I send you a quote,
Right.
like you guys
You know,
have
I know.
permits.
So,
No, yeah, just because it's important.
right.
I mean, that was my original reason, but now, with this insurance fiasco, it's because they're requesting. They want roof permits.
All
And
right.
if you don't have one, I
Yeah.
say don't even pay me the 150 I'm charging you for this 4 point
Right.
because it's not going to help you.
Right.
You just say thank you for the lesson, and you've seen me do it. I've been doing it for years. If I can't help a person because I see something on the 4 point that's going to pose a significant roadblock in getting cheaper coverage, then I go, don't pay me because you're going to be upset. I'm literally telling you right now.
Right.
Now, have I had folks said, oh, we don't care. I'll give you the money anyway. Maybe because they want to take that report and give it to an electrician or a roofer or what have you, right? But no, in my general opinion, folks appreciate that I'm willing to take a hit and say, look, I don't think you're going to get anywhere with this.
So
I'd
just
rather you
right.
fix the problem, call me back, and then we do a clean 4 point.
Continuing
Clean
on the
4 point.
right. So continuing on the 4 point, now you get to the plumbing. What are you looking for as far as that goes on the plumbing side of the 4 point?
Okay, the plumbing is a bit, I mean, it can be straightforward, but it's a bit tricky because you have to remember there's a lot of concealed plumbing in properties for the most part.
It's between
Usually
the wall-
inside walls.
Yeah.
I've seen plumbing in attics. I've seen plumbing under slabs. I've seen
Yeah.
plumbing under crawl spaces. So I would say the challenge to plumbing is that 50% of it, or maybe more, I would say even. No, I'd say probably 85% of plumbing is like not visible.
Mhm.
So you have to be like Sherlock Holmes as an inspector, right? What do? Well, you know more or less where the rooms are, say kitchen, bathrooms, what have you, that need water, if you will. So you can kind of visualize more or less the way the pipes run from room to room. You know where the main shutoff is outside. You see all the hose bibs outside. So you can kind of make a mental picture. Actually, obviously, with years of experience, it gets a little bit easier. But you can make a mental picture. And then you want to be cognizant of those areas and say, hey, do we have any spots there? Is something looking weird? Like, is the drywall flaky or it looks like it's calcified?
Right.
Like white flaky type stuff, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Maybe you see a baseboard that's all gnarly and rotted, and you're like, what
Signs
the
of
heck?
leakage.
There's no right.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, and I'm going to use my background here to elaborate my point. Let's say my plumbing, for instance, is in that upper left corner. Actually, it would be my upper right, where that multicolored painting is there.
Uh-huh.
But the moisture is pronouncing where this little white table is all the way on the
Yeah.
other end.
Uh-huh.
Well, this is what I tell folks. Look, the one thing you have to remember about water is it doesn't fight anything. Water always 1,000%, 1,000,000% follows the path of least resistance, and it's only looking for the lowest point. Okay. So I don't care if the leak's up there. If we have a slope in the house or it hits the ground and the ground is sloped towards the edges, of course, it's going to settle in a final destination and it may not show you spots between there and there. So you have to kind of be like on it. You look up, look down, look in the corners. I tell folks, use your eyes. You have to use your
Right.
eyes.
So then you complete the 4 point and you give that. That's obviously part of your inspection. That's the one that's given to only the 4 point. Let's stress this. Only the 4 point inspection is given to the insurance broker or agent for underwriting. The inspection report itself is not given and
Correct.
should not be given.
I will reaffirm that.
Yeah.
The pre-purchase full home inspection is strictly for your eyes only.
Right.
And I will even add something to that. By law, okay, when I got certified, I am not allowed to share that with anybody without your authorization and your
Right, unless
consent. So
authorized.
if you're my client and Matthew is your realtor, I have to ask you, do you want Matthew to get a copy? Because I can't even send it to him unless you give me your. It's not so bad on a 4 point and a wind mid, but the reason I say that is because this is important. This is private data.
You just mentioned wind mitigation reports. So that's the other one report that we need.
The other insurance report.
For South Florida and Florida. That's part of your 4 point. Well, actually, it's not. It's an addition to the 4 point in reality.
Correct.
So let's talk, what is in the wind mitigation report?
Okay, so, and I'll just add one little thing too, because you're missing it, obviously, because you're not an inspector, but that's okay. Sometimes in lieu of a 4 point, an underwriter may ask for a roof certification and a wind mitigation.
Right.
Okay. But not lately.
It's rare.
The market would have to change a lot for that to go back to that. But
yeah.
So, okay. So wind mitigation speaks directly to. Okay. So on the wind mitigation, talking about the 4 point now.
Yeah.
Again, the 4 point is a pass or fail inspection. What do I mean by that? If you have a double tap on your electrical panel, if you have a leaky faucet or supply lines that are rusting and are about to burst, or a water heater that is rotting and falling apart, guess what? You're not going to get insurance, at least not cheap insurance anyway.
Right.
You'll get some bank imposed, alternate, which will cost you 2 to 3 times more than what you're trying to get. The wind mitigation, on the other hand, is not a pass or fail, meaning it's only a little holiday cheer there, guys. The wind mitigation is strictly used so that they can determine your premium value for the year.
Credits, credits for that, or you get discounts basically for you.
The form itself is designed to tell the underwriter what hardening steps you've taken to make your home stronger in the event of a major hurricane, 150 miles an hour or more. What does that entail? Roof to building attachment, meaning how is the roof attached to the building? If it's an older house, it isn't. It's toenails, maybe the weight of the roof, maybe a clip with less than 3 nails, so it's really not. Then you have clips, it's the next one up, which is typically some sort of little clip with, you're gonna need 3 at least on the rafter side as well as on the block side. Then you move up to single wraps, which maybe I can elaborate with my wallet here, but a single wrap comes out of the concrete wall and it just kind of wraps around that rafter. And then what I like to see for you guys is 2 nails on the front and 1 on the rear, because that's the bigger credit. If you have it reversed, meaning 2 nails in the back and 1 in the front, that's considered a clip. So it's less of a discount. Then you have double wraps. Okay. And then in condo buildings like high rises on the beach, you have structural anchoring bolts because it's a concrete roof. It's
Right.
all steel and bolts. So
Right.
that's actually the best credit. The other things talk to, do you have shutters? Do you have hurricane fabric? Do you have impact rated products?
Yeah.
The one thing I will say about impact rated products, and this is key, you guys, especially you guys that are in condos, and if you're going to buy, a word of advice. Okay, here's the deal. On the high-rise buildings, right? Florida Builder Code only requires large missile impact rated products from floors 1 through 3.
Okay.
Okay, which means you get a discount
Right.
there. Floors 4 and up, all they need is small.
Hmm.
And small no longer qualifies you for a discount. That worked 15 years ago. It's no longer,
That's
that
good to
doesn't
know.
exist anymore. They took that off of the
Yeah.
form. And that's the other thing about the wind mitigation report that I think is very crucial to impart on your listeners, is that that particular form has undergone, I'd say, probably 3 revisions since I became a home inspector.
Okay.
Because of the fact that, the labs down in Homestead, Miami-Dade, they are finding out new things about how hurricanes impact properties and,
Right.
how they damage everything and stuff.
Right.
So that if they find out something new, then they change the form to reflect that new finding, if you will.
Right. And I just want to say one thing about Miami-Dade County. Miami-Dade County sets the standard for the state when it comes
Yes,
to
and
impact
Broward as
windows
well, and
and
Broward
roofing
as well.
and
Mhm.
and having that code. So Miami-Dade County sets the standard for the rest of the state when it comes to how those
Absolutely,
things are manufactured
and
and installed.
I'm gonna tell you what they refer to it as. It's the standard, if you will, that
Mhm.
you're referring to is because we're in Miami-Dade and Broward counties. It's where we're most impacted by the heaviest storms, meaning the strongest storms, and they have deemed those 2 counties as high wind velocity hurricane zone, and
Right.
as such, the requirements to protect your property from this area are much higher than, say, Tallahassee, Jacksonville,
Which
Central
they're probably going to be
Florida,
starting to
Lakeland.
upgrade their standards now since the last couple years. They've been
Yeah,
having that. The
yeah.
west coast of Florida has been having the storms
Well, there
more
you go.
so than the East Coast. So they're definitely going to
Absolutely.
start upping their
Well,
standard.
yeah, and I would venture to guess that the code is definitely, it's not going to go down.
It's going
They're
to
going
go
to
up. Oh, it
require
does,
more.
and
Right,
it
right, right,
increases
right.
the cost as well. But let's
Yeah.
get so we have the windows, and then we have doorways. Doorways are something that entryways is something that has to be rated now as well. And
Yeah.
I've had a case where
I'm sorry, go
the
ahead.
door was considered a hurricane proof, but it was missing one critical thing. And what was that? A sticker. So
Okay, that's
let's
a good
talk
point.
about on that if we
But let me talk about opening protection.
yeah,
Remind me about that sticker. I'm going to touch on that at the end, but
yeah.
that's very important. But okay, the thing that folks need to remember about a wind mitigation report is like we need to look at the wording of it, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so when we get to opening protection, which is what we're talking about, you see the wording that they use. They
Yes,
call it an opening. They don't call it a door or a window
right,
or a pass through or anything like that. If it's a hole on the envelope of the building, it's an opening, right?
right.
So sometimes I've seen older homes, right, that have an attached enclosed garage, if you will,
Yes.
with like this weird decorative concrete little flamingos and stuff, but it's vented. That's an opening.
Yes, we see, and we had that.
Out
You
of
and
a
I had an
hundred of
inspection
those,
like that. We had
nobody
that kind
puts
of
shutters on
inspection.
that thing. You know what I'm
Right,
saying? But if the
right,
roof to the garage is part of the roof of the house, hey, that disqualifies you from getting your credit.
right,
Can a good inspector tell you that? He damn better will, right on the spot before
right,
charging you. But most inspectors out there, they don't even realize that that's an opening. You
right.
understand?
And you and
So
I think you just to go back to that, you and I actually had a house where that was that type of opening in the garage.
in Coral Gables, if I'm not mistaken, yeah,
No,
yeah.
I don't think that was Coral. I think it was this was in Hallandale, I think. And in Hallandale, which is another town in South Florida, and I think it was that type of had that opening in the garage.
Yeah, I
It's
see
an
it all the
extent. It
time.
really is.
The one
Looks
we
the
saw
19. I
together,
think it's
it
like from
could
the
be
50s or
anywhere.
the 40s when the houses were built like that, and
Correct,
just no
correct.
one ever thought about enclosing that. Well, whatever decorative
No,
you want to call it, vent.
and frankly,
Yeah.
Matthew, it does serve a purpose. The garage is in the unfinished space. There's no
Right.
AC there. There's no insulation there.
It's just the
So
air pass
you
through.
want some passive venting going through
Right.
there. It's the same kind of idea as your attic. Okay, the
Right.
attic has no AC or anything like that, but if you look underneath the eave, you have those vents, the
Yeah, the
soffit,
vents. Yeah.
and then the roof itself is going to have some roof ventilation. So passive, right? Because
Right.
it's very moist in South Florida. We're in a tropical
Right.
environment, so we can't have a sealed attic. That wood is going to start to sweat and
Right.
start to rot, et cetera, et cetera.
So
Ventilation.
we have whatever openings you want to call it. So there's not a correct hurricane
Right.
rated.
So, okay, going back to the openings, like that includes garage doors,
Mhm.
regular doors,
That's
like
true.
what you were talking about,
Yep.
skylights, which we hadn't mentioned.
Right.
There's a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And until you go through the wind mitigation, like with a guy like me that's willing to sit and explain, we touched on this before. Like, you want the inspector that's there only for you. You
So-
feel like he has no other clients that's there you have 100 questions, he's going to answer 100
Right.
questions.
So let's talk about that sticker. So the critical,
Oh, yeah.
all
So-
important sticker.
Right. Well, it's not just a sticker, right? Like if you did the installation yourself or you had a contractor, what have you, do the work for you.
Yeah.
If they're like me, give you a packet with your stickers, if you will. We're going to call them NOAs and Florida approvals. NOA is just short for notice of acceptance.
Mhm.
Everything on the planet has a notice of acceptance document. Everything from roofing shingles to CPVC piping, plastic piping, you name it. It's kind of like an ANSI rating, if you will, right?
Right.
Which means here in America, in the States, we have this standard. You can't put something in there that's less than this, okay?
Right.
So this sticker you speak of is the physical manifestation on the actual opening. So if it's on a window, it's usually on the inside
on the
edge
frame.
of the sash, if you will.
Yeah.
If it's a door, typically inside the door itself or the frame. Skylights right on the metal thing. But this is my problem with stickers, Matthew,
They
and
fall
you
off.
know as well because we've done so many. Over the years, they get faded, worn, cracked, torn.
Yes.
People paint over them.
Yep.
People rip them off,
Yep.
et cetera, et cetera. The importance of these things is, let's say you had large missile impact rated products all over your house, right?
Right.
But didn't have any stickers to prove it. Guess what that underwriter is going to say?
They're going to say no.
There's no credit.
Yeah.
So
I've had that
sorry for
happen.
you.
I've had that happen. Yeah.
I have it happen to me every single
And it's
day.
unfortunate.
Sadly.
It just happens. For instance, I sold a house. I was the listing agent, and the inspector said, the door is is up to code, but there's no sticker.
You
so I
got to
can't
kind of
give
prove it.
Yeah. So guess what?
You don't have to
did?
prove it to me. You have to prove it to the underwriter at the insurance carrier.
So I, as the agent, the listing agent, what I did is I went and got a new door with the sticker, the same exact door that was there before. But we had to get a new door, and the door was installed. So that was something I did to make sure that the buyer.
Well, because you work like me, you want your buyers to like, you knocked it out of the park for them. Like
I wanted to help.
Mile,
I wanted to help the seller. I wanted to help the buyer. I wanted to get this deal done. The buyer, look, insurance is expensive.
And a $400 door is a washout. Or
It's a wash.
Or whatever it is.
It helped. Everyone was happy. So now let's move on to, as a proactive homeowner, things as you as the homeowner, when you go to sell, or just to keep things functioning correct. So as a homeowner, what proactive things should a homeowner be doing for their home, their property, so when they go to sell, they should hopefully not have major
That's an
issues.
excellent question. There's a couple things that they can do. Number one, they can call a guy like me, and I can tell them everything that's wrong with their house.
Pre-inspection.
It's like a pre-sale inspection, but for the seller rather than the buyer, if you will, so that the seller is informed as to what condition their house is in.
Sure.
And what needs to be repaired.
Right.
Equally as important, I would say. I mean, I don't get many of those, but like if I were to sell my house, I want to know what exactly is wrong with it
But
so that
luckily
if
you're an
somebody throws an
inspector, so
inspection in my face,
you
I
can
know what to
inspect.
expect, you know?
So, lucky for you, you're an inspector, so you can inspect your own home, no problem. You know what
Exactly.
to
Not
look
everybody
for.
could say that, but yeah,
I understand,
absolutely.
right?
So yeah, that's huge because again, you're informing yourself, okay, well, yeah, I know the water heater needs to be replaced, or yeah, we need a new roof, so
Right.
we'll make concessions. I think it makes everything kind of smoother if everybody's on the same page.
Sure.
But it doesn't always work out that way, sadly. I would
Maintained
just
and taken
say
care
in
of.
normal, living year to year type of, you want to be on top of your caulking maintenance around the windows. That's a
Absolutely.
huge water intrusion thing I see all the time.
Sure.
You want to put eyeballs on your water heater here and again.
Yes.
You
Yes.
don't know how many water heaters I've seen literally rotting, failing, and the homeowner doesn't know about it. They're
Right.
like
Because it's hidden.
shocked.
If
Well,
it's in a
because
closet
if
somewhere,
they're
they
getting
don't
hot
see it.
water,
Yeah.
and I'm assuming, of course, but if they're getting hot water, they think, oh, the water heater's fine. What they don't know is it's rotting, and you have potentially 38 to 50 gallons of water about to fall out in your laundry room or what have you.
Right.
Sometimes it's in a closet in the house.
Mhm.
So, drywall damage, flooring damage, moisture, mold,
Also,
et cetera,
preventive.
which for something that could be avoided. Now, I would
That's
go an
preventive.
extra,
Yes.
yeah, preventive, absolutely. Look, what I tell my clients is this. What you want to do is, I mean, I wish I could be more like this, but you don't want to be reactive. You want to be proactive, meaning if you know this thing needs to be like your oil changes in your car. Like if you never change the oil in your car,
It's going to blow up.
I don't know how
The
long you
engine's
think
going
the
to
car is
seize
going to
up.
last. You know what I'm
Yeah. The
saying? Like
engine will
it
seize up
needs
and it'll
this
stop
in
running.
order to continue. So
Yeah.
same thing with the house. The plumbing thing, supply lines, Matthew. I can't tell you supply lines.
Well,
Supply
yes.
lines are pressurized lines that are typically under your sinks, in your kitchen or in your bathrooms. And what happens is over the years, the braided metal ones, they start to get rusty and whatnot because of moisture. You take a shower in there, there's like vapor and steam
Sure.
and what have you, and that kind of condensates on the different parts. And uh, just time. Time makes things waste. All of us,
Right.
we're not lasting forever. Neither is your property unless you take
Right.
care of it.
Right.
Roof, same thing. Even if you're not a roofer, it's okay for you to go up on the roof and take a look around. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe on the eaves if you don't feel comfortable walking on it. I would suggest you read a little bit about the different roofing materials and stuff like that before you get up there.
Yeah.
I don't walk clay tile roofs with my shoes on.
They'll
I
break.
don't like to walk them at all, but it's really the only way to get a good look at things. I don't like drones. If I'm not seeing it with my own eyeballs, I don't like to comment on it because these guys don't fail me. So yeah, loose tiles, broken tiles, maybe a valley that's leaking because
Right.
all of the tar covering has come off with the weather and whatnot. Electrical, listen, arcing,
Oh,
you'll
you
hear
can hear.
buzzing in the
Yeah.
electrical panel when you flip a light switch and it flickers or it makes a weird noise. Sometimes you go to plug something in it gives you a weird little zap. That
Hmm.
could be reverse polarity or open ground. Those types of things there. The big one I would say on the mechanical is the following. Okay, if you have a central system AC or even a wall-mounted unit, proper condensation removal is required, meaning you have to have a condensate line on the unit. You have to have a secondary, if we're talking about a central AC system, and I'm talking about the air handler
Yeah.
now, you have a condensation line, right? But what happens is with time, typically 3 to 4 weeks, you get like this weird like
Gunk.
mucus in there.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, like an algae growth or something like
There is
that.
a term for it. My AC guy told me, taught me the term, but I don't remember. But there is a scientific wording for it. But I
Yeah, no,
thought,
no, I know.
yeah,
I don't know the word, but I
yeah,
know it is something. It's like goo that
yes,
clogs up that line, right?
yes.
If we don't have a secondary line with a kill switch, what's going
Hmm.
to happen is that's going to fill the pan. The pan is going to overflow. And guess what? That water is going to mess up your walls. It's going
Oh
to mess
yeah,
up your floors. It's going to get inside your house, like in the walls. And then you may be dealing with mold and all this other
right. Well,
stuff that we
then
don't want to
definitely
be dealing with.
proper AC maintenance, having those lines cleared maybe once a
Once a
year, maybe
week for
twice a year.
sure. That's actually something that you could do yourself.
Yeah,
Home Depot, Lowe's, all those folks, they have products that you could put
there's these
inside
little
there,
tablets you could put
either
in
a
there.
pill or a cap of liquid, what
Yeah,
have you. Some folks use bleach. I don't recommend it. Bleach is toxic. Somebody asked me the other day, how do you clean mold or how do you get rid of mold? I said, you know what? I don't touch bleach. I can't even smell it, so I don't ever use it.
right.
And my wife, if she uses it, she can't get near me that day because I'm not sensitive to it. Vinegar,
Yes.
it's all natural, it's non-toxic. And if you Google it or TikTok it, you could actually see what vinegar does to mold under a microscope.
Yes, it
It
is. It
blows it up.
actually does
It
clean it
blows it up.
out. Yeah.
So when I get the typical question, which, the mold thing is a big deal around here down in South Florida. Oh, I got this mold on this wall. And actually we had it too because we had a leak from in one of the units we were living in from above. And, I told my wife, no, 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 just let's dry the area, shoot it with vinegar 2 days in a row, let it dry really
Right.
well. And then we'll come back, give it a good little sand, and then go over with the kills, the primer, right,
Right.
which seals the wall. And then, of course, your interior, exterior paint, whatever the case may be, but you don't need nothing more than vinegar to kill mold. And
Right.
it kills all mold,
So
and it doesn't kill you. So it's a
no, you
nice,
don't want to die from
natural
that. Yeah,
solution.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So we covered the inspection, we covered the 4-point, the wind mitigation, preventive care. Wrapping up, what will be your final thoughts, words of advice to buyers and sellers when it comes to the home inspection? Just, a quick, maybe 1 minute
That is a
summary.
phenomenal question, and I have the perfect answer for you. Um, don't be like this. Some folks go in having expectations as to, their checklist, as to
Right.
my wants, and the seller checklist as to my wants, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Either dollar signs or what have you. And it's been a time or two or more where I've seen scenarios where, I'll give you an instance. A buyer says, oh, well, I'm going to ask for this because, I didn't anticipate this and that and whatever. And I'm going to fight tooth and nail to get that. And then what happens is if the seller is, solid because they need what they need to sell their house for
Yes.
whatever, they're going to say no.
Mhm.
And if you've looked at 10 houses before that one and you really love that one and you're doing this over $2,500, I feel like you may be shooting yourself in the foot,
Mhm.
because what I tell folks is big picture, okay? Look at the market. Is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market?
Right.
What is it that you need? Not what you want, what you need, right? Evaluate all the places that you've seen, evaluate the market, and give yourself the options. Sometimes you don't have an option. You have to pull the trigger regardless, because if you don't, it's going to be another year or two before you
Right.
find something that you may be willing to pull the trigger on. So what I would impart you and your listeners with is maybe don't be so close-minded and so aggressive on your stance that you're not willing to open your ears and listen, because
Mhm.
everything can be worked out. Everything can be,
Oh,
negotiated or what
absolutely.
have you.
This is
You know
something
what I
that I
mean?
deal with. Yeah.
And I've seen that a lot
Yeah.
where I've actually talked to those clients years after and they said, Sergio, I can't believe we didn't listen to you. We were so stubborn and we
Right. Well,
lost the
I
house of
mean,
our dreams,
look, that's,
because of it.
look, you're there to explain what's going on with the
Yeah,
house,
and that's
so you
the
can see visually, and when you do your test.
right.
You
And then
also,
that's the other thing, because I told this young lady yesterday as well on the condo. I said, look, my job, my one function is to give you a clear picture. I
right,
can't tell you to buy this place or not buy this
right.
place.
That's up
That's
to
up
them.
to
Yeah.
you. I don't know what your financial situation is. I don't know where your family lives. I don't know
Right.
where your job's at. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's all you. I'm just giving you, this is what's wrong with the place, or this
Right.
is what's okay with the place. And then you use that as part of your, resources to figure it out.
Well, yeah.
But I can't say, go for
You're
it or
not there
don't
to
go for it.
say yes or no. Look, that's a conversation that the buyer will
Right.
have
Remember,
as with
remember
me.
the cast iron house up
Yes.
there?
Yes.
They pulled the trigger anyway, and they
They
were
did,
happy with that
but
decision.
I would say this was what was fortunate. So this was a case where I had the buyer buying a house up in Wilton Manors. A very nice house. It had
Mhm.
it had cast iron plumbing coming into the house.
Beneath the right,
Leave,
beneath
was it coming
the
in or
slab.
leaving? I think it was a drain. I don't remember exactly.
I think it had to do with the laundry room and that
It
bathroom
was
because the
the
bathtub was clogging up. So it was a section
it
of
was
cast
low
iron under
pressure
the
coming.
house.
There was low pressure in one of the
Correct.
bathrooms, and I think it was galvanized plumbing on the
That was just
outside.
that was like that was like the one thing there.
Then
All
that was
kinds of
it.
weird plumbing things.
The house was great otherwise.
No, no, I'm saying
Yeah.
just for me, like really weird, like you said, pressure issues. The plumbing was off. You
So
know what I'm saying?
yeah, you're right. So my buyer was willing to go through with it, but we also at the same time we opened up negotiations with the seller again
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
say, look,
And they were
because
in a
this
position
because
to
this
be
became an
open to
insurance,
that,
right? This
right?
became an insurance issue as well. So I went that
Yes,
I
yes.
luckily we had a great agent on the other side, the seller side,
Adam,
and the
whom we
set.
spoke about earlier.
No, it has nothing to do with Adam on this one. This
Oh,
was
they didn't do with
no.
Adam.
This
Oh,
was I
okay.
had a the listing agent was great to work with, and everyone was on board to get this deal done, get the deal done for the sellers and get the deal done for the buyer. The sellers agreed to change out that plumbing at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So they brought in a new line coming into the
Mm-hmm.
house, and that did it.
Mm.
And they were willing to pay that expense, and that was something because that's beyond a refrigerator not making ice. This is
Of
critical
course.
to the
Yeah.
function of the
Yeah.
house
Yeah. Yeah.
itself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you know, this is where it's critical, where you have a good inspection report, and now you can take it to the buyer. The buyer makes a judgment, says, "Hey, let's talk to the sellers. Let's see if they can do something for us in getting this repaired or replaced." And again, you having a good agent on the other side of the contract, looking out for the seller, and the seller was willing to work with us, and we got it replaced, and it closed, and everyone was happy in the end, and the buyers are living in the house, the sellers have moved on, and this was again a critical issue, but it was resolvable because
Right.
everyone was
Well,
on board.
and that I'll add a little something to that too. It goes to the fact that yes, I tell you what's wrong, but I'm not an alarmist. Like, oh
No,
my God, the
yeah,
sky is falling. Because sometimes again, I don't like to speak about people. I can only take from my personal experience. When I was green, if you will, starting out many, many moons ago, I was terrified that I was going to miss something. So I was there for hours. Like, you think I take long now? Ooh, you're lucky you didn't meet me when I first started, because you would have hated my,
look,
my guts. You probably would have never called me.
no, I
Anyway,
probably would not. You're right.
yeah, I got a funny story offline for you on that
Yeah,
one. Like
but
a
all right, so
12-hour
let's just
inspection, that lady wanted to kill me.
right.
But again, you want the guy that's going to give it to you straight, but
Mhm.
give it to you right. Not be like, "Oh, I'm afraid of losing my job, so don't buy this place. I'm gonna like it's on fire."
Then the world
That
is
kind of
gone.
thing. And that's what I say as an alarmist.
Right.
There's a way to portray that there's a deficiency on the property without saying the property's a big piece of poo, if you will. Right?
Yes, I agree. Yes.
So,
So,
I mean,
all right,
because honestly, I've done brand new properties that have issues.
oh
Like
yeah,
literally
they're
don't
always
have the
like you said, there's no perfect house. There's no
no,
perfect
no.
property. There's always something. It's just a
Yes.
matter of getting it dealt with and how to deal with it.
Well, and not only that, knowing is this something big or is this something small?
Exactly.
Because that's significant.
You're-
That's kind of the point of a home inspection. I'm
Absolutely. So,
personally.
wrapping up, how do the listeners or the viewers of this podcast find you? How can they get in touch with Sergio Fernandez at Greenfoot Inspections?
Super simple. You could go to our website, which is www.greenfoothomeinspections.com.
Got it.
There you'll find my information as well as my brother's. Just to give you a little kind of logistical view of things, I cover Miami-Dade and Broward counties. My brother does Palm Beach and parts of Martin
Yep.
counties. You could book online. I do have to modify the website a little bit because I'm actually going to try to come up with a menu that includes home inspections.
Okay, great.
I just haven't had time to do that yet because I'm the IT guy. I'm also the inspector guy
Chief
and
bottle
stuff like that.
washer.
So,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So I just haven't had time to sit down. Now with the holidays, it's a bit
All right.
tougher too. But yeah, you find us online. There you're going to have all our information. You could call me directly at
What's your phone
305
number?
742
Say it again one more time.
6088.
Sorry. So go
Yep,
again.
it's okay. At 305 742 6088. We do have TikTok for business. I believe my brother has one up there. I have one down here.
By the way,
I'm not a big social media guy. Again, you guys do all the advertising for me.
Right.
I always tell folks I only do one inspection for you, and you're my biggest fan. So you guys do that for me. I haven't handed out cookies since 15 years ago. So
I like cookies.
and
by
what
the
I
way,
mean by that,
Sergio.
I did
I
a
just want to let
little
you know.
local cookie campaign where I would go to like local real estate agencies and insurance companies and, hey, I'm Sergio. How you doing? I do
like
home
cookies.
inspections.
Just FYI, if you want to butter me up, you get me some
Yeah,
cookies. So we
exactly.
can
No, and it was funny because I did it a couple of weeks in a row, and sometimes I'd hit like the same offices, and like I created like a Pavlovian response.
Right.
People would like light up when I walked in the door with that stupid little cardboard box because they knew cookies were coming. They
All
loved
right.
them some Sergio.
So let's wrap it up. So thank you, Sergio Fernandez with Greenfoot Inspections, for joining me today on the
Thanks for
Krinzman
having me,
Property
man.
Playbook.
I had a great
I'm
time.
Matthew Krinzman. I'm a broker associate with One Sotheby's International Realty here in Aventura, Florida. You know how to all find me. My social media contacts all on my page. And again, everyone, thank you for joining us. And I hope you learned something from on home inspections in South Florida and what to do. All right.
And if you didn't, call me. I'll explain it again.
Right.
Or explain something new.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Sergio, thank you very much for being on this.
Hey, thank you, Matthew. You have a great day. Thanks
you.
for the opportunity.
You got it. That's it for today's episode of the Krinzman Property Playbook. I hope you've gained some valuable insights and feel inspired to take your next steps in the real estate game. If you're ready to make a move or need expert guidance, let's connect. Whether you're buying, selling, or looking to invest, I'm here to help you navigate the South Florida market with confidence. You can reach out to me directly through my website or on social media. Let's get the conversation started and make your real estate goals a reality. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time on the Krinzman Property Playbook.